The economic effects of Brexit. Introduction. The Brexit, the term used to describe the United Kingdom's decision to leave the European Union, has been one of the most significant political and economic events of the 21st century. On June 23, 2016, a referendum was held and 51.9% of voters chose to leave the EU, leading to years of negotiations and planning. Finally, on January 31, 2020, the UK officially left the EU, marking the end of nearly 5 decades of membership. The economic effects of Brexit, both immediate and long-term, are far-reaching and continue to unfold. This article explores the various economic consequences of Brexit, examining its impact on trade, labor markets, investment, and overall economic growth. Number 1. Brexit and trade relations. One of the most significant economic effects of Brexit is the alternation of trade relationships between the UK and the EU. Before Brexit, the UK enjoyed seamless access to the EU single market, benefiting from tariff-free trade, free movement of goods, and a common regulatory framework. However, leaving the EU meant the UK lost access to these privileges. The UK and EU eventually agreed on a trade deal, but it introduced new trade barriers, including customs checks, regulatory divergence, and more stringent rules of origin. This section will examine the impact of Brexit on trade, including the increasing costs and delays in cross-border trade, and the effect on businesses that relied on the ease of trade with EU countries. Number 2. The impact on UK GDP. Brexit has had a noticeable impact on the UK's GDP growth. Economic growth has slowed since the referendum, and projections for future growth have been revised downward. A study by the UK government estimated that Brexit could reduce the UK's GDP by up to 4% in the long run. The decrease in trade with EU countries, lower foreign direct investment, and the uncertainty surrounding future trade agreements have all contributed to weaker economic growth. This section will discuss the effect of Brexit on the UK economy's overall growth, with a focus on the sectors most affected by the transition. Number 3. Foreign direct investment. Foreign direct investment has been a critical driver of economic growth in the UK, especially in sectors such as manufacturing, finance, and technology. However, Brexit has led to a reduction in FDI, with many multinational companies reconsidering their investment strategies due to the uncertainty of the UK's future relationship with the EU. Some companies have relocated their operations to EU countries to maintain seamless access to the single market, while others have scaled back or delayed investment in the UK. This section will explore the trends in FDI since Brexit and the potential long-term effects on the UK economy. Number 4. The effect on the financial sector. The financial sector, particularly in London, has been a major beneficiary of the UK's membership in the EU. As the financial hub of Europe, London hosted numerous banks, financial institutions, and trading platforms. However, after Brexit, many financial services firms have had to adjust to the loss of passporting rights, which allowed them to provide services across the entire EU without needing separate license for each member state. As a result, many financial institutions have shifted some of their operations to cities like Frankfurt, Paris, and Dublin. This section will analyze the impact of Brexit on the UK's financial sector, including job losses, capital flight, and changes in the financial services landscape. Number 5. Labor market impacts. Brexit has had a substantial impact on the UK labor market, particularly concerning the free movement of workers between the UK and EU countries. Prior to Brexit, workers from the EU had the ability to live and work in the UK without restrictions. After Brexit, the UK implemented a points-based immigration system, which limited the flow of low-skilled workers from the EU. This has created labor shortages in several sectors, including agriculture, healthcare, and hospitality, which relied heavily on EU labor. This section will explore the impact of these changes on the UK labor market, including the potential for skill shortages and rising wages in affected industries. Number 6. Supply chain disruptions. Brexit has caused disruptions to UK supply chains, particularly in industries that depend on the just-in-time model, such as manufacturing and retail. The introduction of customs checks, delays at border crossing, and new paperwork requirements have increased the cost and time of importing and exporting goods. The agricultural sector has been particularly impacted, as fresh produce from the EU faces longer delays at the border. This section will discuss the effects of Brexit on supply chains, including the challenges businesses face in adapting to the new trade environment and the potential long-term consequences for UK businesses. Number 7. The impact on the UK's agricultural sector. The UK's agricultural sector has been significantly impacted by Brexit. Before leaving the EU, UK farmers benefited from subsidies under the Common Agricultural Policy, and their products had tariff-free access to the EU market. Since Brexit, the UK has been no longer eligible for CAP subsidies, and agricultural exports to the EU face tariffs and increased administrative burdens. The UK government has pledged to replace the CAP subsidies with new domestic support, but there is uncertainty without the level of funding and how it will be distributed. This section will explore the changes facing the agricultural sector post-Brexit, including changes to subsidy structures and access to European markets. Number 8. Regulatory divergence. One of the key features of Brexit is the UK's departure from the EU's regulatory framework, which has led to regulatory divergence between the two entities. While the UK and EU have tried to reach agreements on certain regulatory standards, such as in food safety, environmental protection, and financial services, there are still significant differences in rules and regulations. This divergence creates challenges for businesses operating in both markets, as they must comply with different sets of regulations. This section will examine how regulatory divergence has affected UK businesses and what the future holds in the terms of regulatory cooperation or divergence. Number 9. Brexit's effect on the UK's trade with non-EU countries. While Brexit has made trade with EU countries more difficult, it has opened the door for the UK to negotiate its own trade deals with non-EU countries. The UK has signed several trade agreements, including deals with Japan, Canada, and Australia, and has been working on agreements with the United States and other countries. However, it remains to be seen how much these deals can compensate for the loss of easy access to the EU market. This section will explore the opportunities and challenges posed by the UK's new trade deals with non-EU countries and how they may impact UK businesses in the long run. Number 10. The future of the UK-EU relationship. The relationship between the UK and the EU will continue to evolve in the coming years. While the UK has formally left the EU, there is ongoing negotiation over future trade arrangements, including cooperation in areas such as security, research, and environmental standards. The economic relationship between the UK and the EU is complex, and both parties have a vested interest in maintaining a strong, stable partnership. This section will look at the potential future developments in the UK-EU relationship, including the possibility of new trade agreements, regulatory alignment, and the impact on economic cooperation. Number 11. The economic consequences for Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland, which shares a border with the Republic of Ireland, an EU member state, has been one of the most contentious issues in the Brexit negotiations. The Northern Ireland Protocol, designed to prevent a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, has created a de facto customs border in the Irish Sea. This has led to disruptions in trade between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK, as well as tensions over the treatment of Northern Ireland as a separate entity from the UK. This section will examine the economic consequences of Brexit for Northern Ireland, including trade challenges and the potential for political instability. Number 12. Long-term economic outlook. The long-term economic effects of Brexit are still uncertain, as the UK continues to adapt to its new relationship with the EU and the rest of the world. While some businesses have already adjusted to the new realities of post-Brexit trade, others may face long-term challenges, particularly in sectors that rely heavily on EU market or labor. The UK government will need to implement policies that promote investment, innovation, and economic diversification to ensure future economic growth. This section will discuss the long-term economic outlook for the UK, including potential risks and opportunities for recovery and growth. Number 13. Brexit's impact on the EU economy. While Brexit has primarily impacted the UK economy, it has also had economic consequences for the EU. The departure of the UK, one of the EU's largest economies, has led to a reduction in the EU's overall economic output and has necessitated adjustments in trade and political dynamics. The EU must now navigate the loss of the UK as a key trading partner and adjust to the shift in economic power. This section will explore the economic impact of Brexit on the EU, including the challenges faced by EU businesses and governments and the EU's plans for the future growth and stability. Number 14. Conclusion. Assessing the economic impact of Brexit. Brexit has had profound economic effects on both the UK and the EU, from trade disruptions and regulatory challenges to labor shortages and shifts in investment patterns. The consequences of Brexit are wide-reaching. While some sectors have adapted to the new environment, others continue to face significant challenges. The long-term economic impact of Brexit will depend on how the UK and the EU navigate their future relationship, the policies implemented to support businesses and workers, and the broader global economic environment. Ultimately, Brexit represents both an opportunity and a challenge for the UK, and its economic effects will continue to unfold for years to come.